Not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. The Donald Trump effect. If you haven't heard, this is the latest trend going on, is all of a sudden, now that Donald Trump has been elected, the world is a wonderful place again, right? You may have noticed the behavior of people around you, because I'm sure the majority of people who listen to my channel, you're surrounded likely by conservative people. And I say that mainly because the majority of us have what we would call conservative values. But the problem is that the conservative politicians don't. And the conservative politicians are working with the Democrat politicians to bring about a global world order. Now, of course, the conservatives are brainwashed into thinking that our vote actually counts and these people are working for them. But if you actually pay attention, they're being lured into something bigger. It's a trap, but they don't see it yet. But luckily for us, we do. So you may have noticed how excited people are. Suddenly things are happening, right? And they're going so hard, they're pushing so hard, they are actually doing things automatically without Trump being in power to make the world a better place in your mind. Because remember, all of this stuff occurs in your mind. And now trending by design is what they're calling the Trump effect. And let me show you it. Things like how Wall Street has just hit record highs just because Trump won. The Fed has cut interest rates. We're starting to see prices drop just on the notion that Donald Trump is going to be president again. And you could probably see around you the delusion that's going on. And there's two Bible verses to note before I show you all of these stories and how it ties into it. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11 through 12. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. And the other verse is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So peace and safety, right? So let's take a look at all of these stories, which are all manufactured, because remember, all of the news is global state-run news, because they're all working together. All these governments are working together to herd humanity, so to speak. No pun intended. And they are convincing everybody out there now that Donald Trump being selected in America is going to have these massive effects around the world. The first story, of course, conveniently that Donald Trump has put in power, Elon Musk joined Donald Trump on a call with Ukrainian President Zelensky to discuss ending the war with Russia. So there's your first check, right? All of a sudden, Trump is president, and all these years hearing about Zelensky and Ukraine and our tax money and Russia and all this collusion with Russia. Well, now Donald Trump is going to put an end to that war. But oh, wait, there's more. China has come out and says they hope for peace and coexistence with the United States. We respect the choice of the American people, right? No longer China the enemy of the United States. In fact, I would expect some stories out there of how China is not going to buy any more U.S. farmland, right? Even though a lot of that was happening. Wasn't Trump in power when a lot of that was happening? I'm sure we'll hear stories where they say Trump is now preventing China from buying farmland in America. And the civilians will go, yes, yes. So now we're going to end the war in Ukraine and China's not going to buy land here anymore, right? What about the other conflicts? Well, you may have seen Netanyahu and Israel congratulate Trump on a huge victory. They even have billboards over in Israel for Donald Trump. The Trump effect? Qatar demands Hamas leadership to leave. Hamas calling for immediate end to war after Trump election win. Are you seeing a pattern yet? Because what I try to do here is show you a pattern. When you see it all at once, you can think of two things. You can either fall for it and say, well, the news is fake news. The news is my enemy. We hate the news, right? And then realize, okay, well, if the news is fake and everyone's been saying that for years, then why are you believing any of these stories? Is it only fake when they persecute Donald Trump on the news and you don't realize that they're martyring him by persecuting him to make you love him even more? What about all the stories that are out there? right? Because every Trumper who's hearing these stories is saying that peace is coming, that the world is going to be a better place, that finally the chaos is going to end. And they're making sure to let you know that every major conflict that we all know about right now, right? We know about Ukraine, we hear about it every day, or we did at least for a long time. Now every day we hear about Hamas and Israel. All of a sudden, Trump is going to halt that, right? All of a sudden, Zelensky and Putin are going to have a discussion because Trump was elected and they're afraid of him, right? All of a sudden, China doesn't want to mess with America anymore. All of a sudden, Hamas is running in panic and they're saying they want an immediate end to the war, according to Newsweek, right? How about this one? Just in, the Taliban says that it wants to strengthen relations with President Trump and be removed from the United States terrorist list. So now, Taliban, of course, who, this is all so ridiculous that people don't even know ISIS, the Taliban. These are all funded by our own government in the United States of America. These are all branches off of the CIA. These are all intel. The intel agencies control these supposed terrorist groups. So now all of a sudden, the Taliban is afraid that Trump is president and they want to become friends with America. Do you see where this is going yet? How about the other narratives that we've heard year after year after year with Mexico, right? That's probably the biggest talking point for most Americans. They're very upset about Mexico. They suddenly don't want to go to Cancun anymore. They hate Mexico. But most of these people will end up going to Cancun for spring break. They just don't want Mexicans to come across the border, right? Then they tell you they don't want them to come illegally. They get all hyped up because the news, which is manufactured, keeps showing them running in the streets of America, terrorizing people. These are all manufactured news stories. It doesn't mean that illegals aren't crossing the border. Our government's allowing it to happen, but then they're manufacturing news stories around it to gaslight you, right? So Mexico, suddenly, now that Donald Trump has been elected/selected president, their caravan, their migrant caravan is breaking up after Trump's victory. The Mexican government is afraid of tariffs coming from Donald Trump. So now Mexico's government for 4 years has been pushing people across the border. Now all of a sudden they're stopping people from crossing the border. They're working with us, for us, because they're afraid of Donald Trump, right? How about Mayor Adams in New York? Suddenly, he's ending migrant voucher programs. In other words, they're not going to house the migrants anymore in New York. You may have heard the stories year after year of how our tax money was putting illegal immigrants in hotels while American civilians were struggling to put food on the table, right? And now suddenly Mayor Adams has decided he's going to end that. He's going to work with Trump and we're going to throw all these illegals out, right? On top of that, the EU, they're opening bids. They're already calling Donald Trump, who isn't even the president yet. They're calling Donald Trump, saying that they want to buy oil from America. They want to do more business with America now that Trump's the president. Are people not seeing how they're being baited here? When you see it all at once, you should look at it and you're either going to say one of two things. You're going to be a sucker who says, see, Trump is anointed by God. All these evil people like, Ursula and Putin, all these evil people all of a sudden are bowing down to Donald Trump. They're all suddenly afraid of him. All these wicked people are changing their ways because they don't want Trump to do something to them. Meanwhile, when Trump was in power last time, the swamp was not drained. Trump was going over to the World Economic Forum with Klaus Schwab while he was the president of the United States of America and mingling with all the globalists, right? But now, of course, everybody forgets that stuff, just like everybody forgets about Operation Warp Speed. Very convenient, because suddenly they're feeling better in their lives. They're saying illegals are going, right? Because the news is telling you that they're going. Most people wouldn't be affected by any of these stories. You wouldn't really be affected by the migrants unless you're living on one of these border counties. And what you really should do is you should be going to your own government and blaming them for it, not the migrants that are crossing, because the government's using our tax money to pay them to come across. They're bribing them to do it. They're sending them here. They're literally driving the cars that are bringing them in to America. So why would you blame the migrants? You should be blaming your own government. They should be throwing them out of power, right? But nobody would know the majority of these stories if the government wasn't busy gaslighting you every day, telling you that migrants are running amok, your government's funding them in New York. Now all of a sudden, all the stories have gone the other way. And we're supposed to believe it's because Donald Trump was elected by the people and everybody's running scared. There's even more stories out there. Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas says he's ready to work with Donald Trump towards peace. How about the stories about the police? Years and years of defunding the police, right? Now all of a sudden the police have a backbone. The Masonic Fraternal Order of Police are saying, if any politician attempts to defund us or cripple law enforcement again, we will initiate, start to finish, a recall process of that politician. So now the police are going to go after the politicians in states like California who have been working to defund them. What took so long? What took so long for all this stuff to happen? It's all happening at once, right? And we're supposed to believe it's because the people put Donald Trump in power. And now the people don't realize that they're being completely worked. Putin, he's even on record now saying Western civilization is not the enemy. But all we've heard for year after year after year is that America is Satan. How many times have we heard these speeches of Putin calling America Satan? Biden's the worst. America's in danger. Threats to America from Russia. Well, now Trump's in power. Putin's afraid. He's backing down. The West's our friend. It's not our enemy anymore. And then when you wrap it all up, all those stories that I just mentioned to you, the economy's better, right? Maybe the end of the war with Ukraine and Russia. China's backing down, saying, we respect America. We don't want any problems with America. Israel thrilled. Qatar demanding Hamas leave. Hamas calling for immediate end to the war. The Taliban begging for friendship with America. Mexico's government saying, we're not going to allow anyone across the border again. We promise. Your Democratic politicians like Mayor Adams, the Freemason, of course, saying we're not going to give our tax money away anymore to anybody. Any illegals at least, right? The EU saying, we want to buy your oil. We want to work with you and buy. We don't want to buy from Russia anymore. We want to make America rich again, right? Hey, Palestine, the Palestinian president. We want peace too. Oh, the police, we're going to go after the Democrats. We're going to go after them, right? Russia, we're afraid of you. We're friends. What else is there out there? Well, lots of stories about could Donald Trump run again in 2028. He's not even in office yet. There are stories out there about, well, what does the Constitution say? Can Donald Trump run again in 2028? Because all these things that are happening are wonderful. The Trump effect, all of a sudden, all the stress that we all felt, which was all created by the government themselves, who controls the media, all of a sudden it's all gone. We feel great again. Hey, can Donald Trump run again in 2028? These are stories that are out there. Literally. The mainstream is printing stories about, well, what does the Constitution say about Trump running again? He's not even in office yet. And you have people making deals with him. You have other countries talking about how they want to bring about world peace. And again, doesn't it make you think of the Bible and what it says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3? For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Anybody out there, and the majority of people are, trust me, the majority of people look at me and they say, this guy is so negative. Why can't he believe that good things are happening? Right? These people all believe in the deep state. These are what we call cookie cutter baby truthers, right? They all are now invested in conspiracy, believe that there's a deep state. They have no idea that the people they're supporting, aka Israel, is the real deep state, right? They don't know anything. There's a deep state. That's what they believe, right? And the deep state, of course, to them is all the Democrats. It's all these people who look like they're Satanists. They want to have trans in libraries. That's the deep state to them. They don't think any further than that. They think they have an idea about these conspiracies. All of a sudden, with Trump in power, if he takes office in January, all of a sudden when hurricanes hit and all these bizarre weather storms hit, these same people were saying that, oh my gosh, the government created it. And then they're bringing in FEMA. They're all going to stop saying that stuff. Because they're all going to suddenly say, well, Trump wouldn't do that. Those are real natural events. And suddenly you're going to hear stories about FEMA coming down and actually helping. You're going to hear stories about the government's giving out thousands of dollars, not $750, because they're actually helping. You won't hear anything about weather modification anymore, but you'll hear about FEMA and FEMA being good. This is what's going to flip here. This is the inversion that's coming. All of a sudden with Trump in power, all the things, all the corrupt crap the government does, they're going to think in their own mind that they're not doing it anymore. Trump got control of FEMA. He got control of the CIA. He got control of the FBI. These are all wonderful organizations once again. And thus you have an inversion. These people are living in an inverted reality. These stories are all manufactured stories. These people who are feeling great, who are saying to themselves, the Trump effect, the world is finally good. 4 years of suffering. And they don't even know what suffering is, okay? None of us really do. Let's be real in 2024. When we complain, I complain about losing channels and free speech, but I'm real. I don't sit there at night crying about it because I have I look at things and I say, look, what other people have gone through, the Armenian genocides and all these other things, it's nothing compared to what we go through. Nothing. The last 4 years with Biden complaining about groceries, it's annoyance. That's what it is. It's like getting pinched constantly by the government. That's what it is. It's like getting poked in the middle of the night, poked for breakfast, they're constantly bugging us, right? Gas prices, this stuff. But it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things compared to what's coming. These people are like, the world is great all of a sudden because Mexicans are getting deported. They don't realize that they're being baited. They're being baited to think that the world is suddenly going to change for the good because their vote actually counted. But this has been the plan from the globalists all along. It's looking more and more likely that sudden destruction is coming very, very soon. I don't understand how these people can look at the news, call it fake news, which it is, but they don't seem to understand the psychosis of the news, that it's manufactured, right? That the stories that are out there are to manufacture their perception of what's going on in the world. Think about if you lived in a cage, okay? Say you were caged somewhere, and every day the guy that caged you came down and he gave you a newspaper, but he wrote the newspaper. You wouldn't know, right? Say you used some fancy, USA Today print, and he pretended, here's the news, and he hands you the news. And everything in the news, all you're thinking about is you're reading the news. You're like, that's what's happening. Or he could write in the news that there's bombs going off out in the streets. That it's not safe for you to leave your cage. And you would believe it, right? Because you say, oh my gosh, you're not even seeing it with your own eyes. You're not hearing bombs going up, but you're reading it in the paper that's being given to you by the same person who's caging you. That's what it's the equivalent to, right? And you would believe it because you'd be like, well, it's the USA Today. It's a trusted news source. You don't know who's writing the stories. You don't know who's behind it. It controls your perception. You need to look at the world through your own eyes, not through the manufactured eyes of the mainstream media. But these people don't do that. And they go, well, I'll look at it from my eyes. When I see that I'm not paying $10 for butter anymore, when milk's not $10, it's $5, then I'll see that the world is a better place. And they won't even realize that they're being worked. They're being manipulated. Trump's bringing peace, they say, right? Trump's bringing peace all around the world. The Taliban want to be our friend all of a sudden. Hamas wants to end the war. Ukraine doesn't want to be in war anymore. Russia doesn't want anything to do with Ukraine anymore. They want to be friends with America. China's afraid of us. But yeah, you see how easy it is to get worked? All these people who are trending the Trump effect literally don't even realize. They say the news is fake, right? They don't even realize that the news is manufacturing them into thinking that all this wonderful stuff is happening. Be on guard, ladies and gentlemen. Be on guard. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you, as always, and your families.